Inside Politics, our guest is mayoral candidate Jeremy Kane. Jeremy, you talk a lot about how the issues are related in Nashville. Looking on your website, I don't see a specific plan, say, for something like transit. I know they're connected, but how is it? What specifically do you want to do about transit and transportation in Nashville? Yeah,
so we've talked about two things. The long-term vision is we need an all-of-the-above approach. You know, getting into this race, obviously knew a lot about education. Have been really surprised about the parallels between education and transportation. It's an all-above approach. We're just not going to pave more sidewalks. We're not just going to
afford all of the above.
If we're smart about it and we leverage those resources. And that's one thing that the reason why I've talked so much about it being connected is we spend $80 million a year on MTA buses and we spend $40 million a year on yellow school buses. Mayor Dean and Dr. Register started the STRIDE program where high school students can ride for free. When we think about it, that's $120 million a year that we spend on transportation. We're not doing enough to leverage those dollars today. What does it look like to have some sort of combined or at least connected system in the future? But most importantly, we've got to act now because traffic's getting worse.
What about affordable housing? That's talked a lot about it, but is it about not enough public housing available? Is it about not enough people being priced out of their neighborhoods? Or is it about NIMBYism? Because people say they're for affordable housing unless it's right down the street.
Absolutely. No, I think, well, one thing it's not just picking numbers out there and trying to say you have a plan. I think it's more importantly, it's dividing the issue really into two components, which are important. It's the affordability piece of it, and that goes right back to transit. Is a third of our income on average is spent on our car, our insurance, in gas and upkeep of those cars. If we had a true comprehensive system, we'd put money back in people's pockets. If you take out that transit cost, we're actually one of the more affordable places to live here. Then there's a housing component to it, and we just need more housing across the board. I've talked a lot about the KC Revitalization Project. That is going to be housing that you and I would want to live in, but also is going to be subsidized to allow people who need it and need it close enough to downtown that we're not going to push people outside of downtown like other cities have done.
One candidate talking about putting more money in people's pockets is your opponent, Bill Freeman. He wants to set up a minimum wage in Nashville of $12 an hour. Now, there's a state law that says that probably can't happen. Is he making a promise he can't deliver on?
I believe so. You know, and the other part of it, too, is, you know, he said he wants to do this, but do it in 2018. I think that's a political promise. That's what we've avoided in this campaign. I think that's why our message is getting across despite being grossly outspent. I think what we've got to look at is how do we make sure that people are still able to make Nashville a home, want to make it a home. That's investments in education and neighborhoods, keeping it affordable, and then having a safe place to live.
Given Bill Freeman's resources that he's putting in this race, is the goal for you to finish second to get into the runoff against him?
You know, I'm a competitive person. You said I was a competitive swimmer. I will never have been happier to be second place. I think it's just getting in the runoff. The race changes dramatically on August 7th to get in there. I think at this point, probably any number of the candidates in the race could get in the runoff. I don't think anybody is guaranteed at this point.
Do you believe it's an anybody but Freeman race at this point? Bill Freeman against whoever the anybody but Freeman candidate is?
I think just because he's had the money and put it out there. But I think we, as I said before, we have the right message. We get it out there. We think that folks will be attracted to that message. We're not running against Bill Freeman. We're running for a future vision of Nashville.
I've heard some rumors that early on in the campaign you might have been approached even by Bill Freeman about getting out of the race. Did he promise you a place in his administration if you'd get out of the race?
I did not let the conversation go that long. I told him that that's not the way I play politics and don't have those conversations and won't be brought up. He did, yes.
Now, while you were in school at Stanford, you mentioned Bill Clinton. You worked for him. You also dated his daughter, Chelsea. He came to town and spoke at your first commencement at Lead Academy. Do you expect to get a contribution from him? Is he coming back to town to help you with any kind of fundraising between now and the election?
You know, I've never talked about my relationship with him and won't start now. You know, he's a good friend. He's a mentor. You know, I reach out to him occasionally just for advice. There's nobody better out there that understands politics, that understands how to communicate a vision. So I'll leave it at that.
You've mentioned that you have some concerns about economic development for Nashville, particularly the tax abatements, where taxes have been given away to some people for relocating and building new buildings in town. So you wouldn't use that tool. How do you hope to compete with other cities to bring development to Nashville if you don't do that?
Well, I think that's a mischaracterization. So I was not against incentives. I've said we should and can use incentives. In fact, I said we should use them for Bridgestone. Where I raised the issue was if we say education's our most important issue and it's our priority, we've got to protect it within every deal. When we talk about sewers or sidewalks or affordable housing, ultimately it involves education. What I said instead was we have never in our history given away that tax abatement for that long for for schools. And I looked at it from the perspective of my 3.5-year-old daughter. She will never see a dollar from that property, those property taxes, in her K through 12 public school experience. I understand sales tax. I understand what Bridgestone brings to it. I'm glad they're here. I would have used incentives.
Tax increment financing takes taxes away as well. It doesn't spend them on the general fund. It puts them out to the use of that particular project. It seems to never go away. Are you going to continue to use tax increment financing?
I think we've got to be thoughtful about it. I think, you know, there's been conversations in the report, I think even by NewsChannel 5, about having it go out to 2040, I think it is. We need to look at that. We need to make sure that our schools are properly funded, our firefighters are funded.
Jeremy Kane, thank you for coming in.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it. If you make it into the runoff, we'll certainly have you back to talk to us.
Absolutely, love to be here.
And thank you for joining us on Inside Politics. Hope you can be back here again for a future show. If you can't get enough politics in the meantime, go to the NewsChannel 5 website. You'll find my Capitol View commentary. New commentary posted every Friday afternoon. By the way, next week we expect to have Bill Freeman as our guest on the show as the next mayoral candidate. Hope you have a good rest of the weekend. Enjoy the 4th of July holiday, and we'll see you back here next time. Goodbye.